Hello and welcome to another episode of the StoryWorks Roundtable. Tonight we are talking about accountability and whether or not we're good at it, what it can do for us as writers, and how to stick with it. So Matt and Kathryn, would either of you like to start us off with some thoughts?
I'm terrible at accountability. That's my main problem right there.
Yeah, I think a friend of mine said this: a writer's natural state is not writing. If you're gonna get things done, you need to be accountable somehow. Whether that's with deadlines or other people or whatever, like whatever you have to do to trick yourself into doing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree that a writer's natural state is not writing. I would say the opposite. Because if you aren't writing, then you're just a person. You're just a non-writer, But, is there a difference between accountability and, time management, productivity?
No, I think it's the same thing. It's just that people who are writers who think writing is a really important thing for them, if it's important in your life, sometimes it's hard to get done. There's a lot of resistance to it because you care about it. Maybe you're afraid of the story, or maybe you are afraid of messing it up, or maybe you're afraid of failure or of success, in either case. But sometimes it can just be hard to keep pushing ahead, and so you make excuses for yourself. At least I've been there. I know a lot of people who have. You call it writer's block, or you call it whatever you want, but it's just a failure to keep moving. And the thing that accountability does is it forces you to push ahead when you're uncomfortable, right? I know. So I do these. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think you can be accountable to yourself or to another person or to a deadline on the calendar. Like, there's all sorts of different ways that you can hold yourself accountable, but there does have to be something that you have set down, like, in order to be accountable to it. You have to have a stated goal or a written down deadline, or someone in your life who you have told, on this day, if I don't have this done, this should happen, or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, Kathryn. I think that the difference between productivity and accountability is that productivity doesn't really need an object. Like today I was very productive, but I got no writing done. I actually got almost no work done. But to be accountable, you need to be accountable to someone or something, be that a calendar. And we get into trouble when we're only accountable to ourselves, because we can make excuses, we can rationalize, we can push back our own deadlines even, and, change up our calendar. So I think the best way to be accountable is to have an accountability partner or group.
Yeah, deadlines help a lot.
Yeah, this is where your writing group can be really helpful. If you have a really good, solid writing group, people who you can help hold accountable and that can hold you accountable because you meet with them regularly, is usually a good idea.
Yeah.
Definitely. Are either of you in writers groups or accountability partnerships?
Yeah, I have a friend that I meet with once a week. We write similar stuff, and that helps keep me going. And we always set goals, what you want to get done by the next week. So that's, short-term accountability. Although we've both missed deadlines before, sometimes life gets in the way, but it does help. I also know people who use pre-order deadlines for their books, as because if you break those, Amazon will take away your pre-order ability. So that's a big deal. There's there's the consequence, right? But I don't necessarily believe in positive or negative, but in both. You can't just have the carrot or stick. You kind of need both, like a positive reinforcement and a negative reinforcement. So the pre-order deadline does that really well, because the positive reinforcement is you have another book and you get sales for it and you make money and your readers are happy. And the negative reinforcement is, if I miss this deadline, Amazon's going to take away my ability to do pre-orders, right? So that's a really, really extreme version of it. And another extreme version is, I know a writer who wrote a check to a political candidate he didn't agree with and set a deadline and sealed the check in a stamped, addressed envelope and gave it to his wife and said, if I don't make this deadline, you have to mail this check.
My friend did that with his wife too. Only with him, it wasn't a writing deadline. She had to not interrupt him while he was writing. And then if she kept interrupting him, he was going to mail the check. So it was his carrot and her stick.
And awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, although
that's
neither of them liked the political candidate. But so I think we should talk a little bit about the book pre-order thing, because that is something I would never recommend anybody do. I think it's dangerous because if you...
I think it's worth saying that this writer is a very experienced writer. Like, she knows how long it takes her to do things. A lot of writers, myself included, have missed deadlines because they have failed to estimate correctly, right? So,
Right. So that's the caveat, that if you're very experienced and you know your audience and you know your craft and you know how long it's going to take you and all that stuff, you could probably make that work for you as an accountability piece. But generally speaking, if something happens, life gets in the way, it takes you longer than you expect, then you're confronted with the issue of either missing the deadline and letting Amazon punish you, or making the deadline but putting out a subpar book and then hoping nobody reads it before you get to put the new edition up, So that could really be two strikes against you instead of just a motivating factor.
I think there are other services like Draft to Digital that allow you to set pre-orders that are more flexible, right? So if you know coming into a pre-order that you're not going to make it, you can push it out. It's not like it's set in stone, right? Especially with Draft to Digital, they're less strict than Amazon, I think.
Right. Well, so I have a business mastermind group. It's a huge accountability piece because I feel like if I tell them I'm going to do something by a certain deadline and I miss that deadline, then I feel like I'm letting them down, even though I'm sure they don't really care. Like, they hold me accountable and they support me, but when the call's over, they're going to go back to their lives, right? I'm the one who will still be caring about it. It's just like we all know that other people don't pay as much attention to us as we think they do.
Right.
Like when you have the bad hair day and you think everybody's looking at your hair, but really nobody sees it. But just having that framework.
That happens to me all the time, Alida. Really
I can tell. Oh, yeah. I didn't want to say anything, Matt, but...
Woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ooh, sorry. But just knowing that they're going to listen to me and be a sounding board and give me feedback if I'm not doing what I said I would and following through, then I really feel like it's a group I'm letting down. I can't make excuses for that.
Sure.
So psychologically, it's a big help.
And if you don't have a mastermind group, you can do something simple, like just post it on social media, start telling your friends, right? Because even if they're not going to hold you accountable like a mastermind group might, or if you're not going to mail a check to a political candidate or something like that, if you start telling your friends, they're just going to casually ask you a few weeks later, oh, how's it going? On that book deadline, you told me and all of your other friends that you were going to do, right? So just making it public does a lot. Right, and it's the same thing like with weight loss or exercise goals or anything, right? If you tell all of your friends I'm going to lose 10 pounds, and in a couple months nothing has changed, they're going to start asking you like, oh, what happened? Like, we talked about this, So just making it public is a big deal, and also giving yourself a reward for when you do hit it, so that you're rewarding yourself for achieving your goals, right? That's important too.
Right. I think with going public and stuff, people need to make sure it's a motivating factor and not a shaming factor. So that should really be the carrot and not the stick, because you're setting something up for yourself to motivate yourself. And why make yourself feel worse about your life and your achievements than you might when you decide that you need to set up the accountability piece in order to get stuff done. So Going public can be great. Just releasing content on a regular schedule can be really useful. When I took my video classes this year, one of the things that was really driven home is when you release content on a schedule, your audience starts to expect that. And so once you establish that expectation, that pattern, if you miss it, people will notice. And then you don't even need the feedback loop. It's just knowing that you've established something. And so reliability on your end as the content provider is huge. Mm-hmm. So if you are blogging about your writing experience or, posting whatever, you can use that as your carrot, just knowing that you have an audience with expectations.
Yeah. And it comes down to knowing yourself too. Some people are very guilt driven and other people are very driven by rewards. And I think, at least for me, I'm more guilt driven sometimes, right? If I tell somebody it's going to be done, I'm more likely to do that than if I say to myself, oh, you can go buy a nice bottle of scotch when this book is done, right?
Right.
I mean, that's great, but when it comes down to it, I care more about letting other people down than I do about the reward I've given myself,
Totally. Yeah, that's really funny because I think people will learn about us based on what system of carrot and stick we use. Like, I don't think I'm guilt-driven so much because I can make my rationalization very strong, but I'm probably shame-driven. Like, I would be so ashamed if I let other people down. So, I can let myself off the hook for letting myself down, and I don't really believe in guilt. It's probably splitting hairs, guilt and shame, but yeah, it's like the mastermind example. It's like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed. I had to report to them that I didn't make my deadline or that I haven't made as much progress as I wanted to.
Yeah. Just know yourself, and whatever it takes to trick you into doing it, right? Like, who cares what it takes as long as you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. Kathryn, how about you? Guilt, shame, or rewards?
I'm bad at the rewards one because if I set myself a reward, I'll just be like, meh, I can just go get that anyway. So right. I'm not good at that at all. Whereas I actually have maybe subconsciously, deliberately not set myself any friends that are accountability partners yet because I know how overwhelmed I am by just the idea of having that deadline. So right now I'm kind of just in the process of trying to figure out what works best for me, and I'm terrible at it. And I'm missing deadlines all over the place. And I have a calendar on my wall that says third quarter goals, and I haven't achieved one of them, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Or fourth quarter goals because it's the fourth quarter now. But anyway, it doesn't matter so much as just saying I think I haven't put that in place yet because I know that if I do, then I'll have to stick to it.
Right. And I don't think it wasn't a year ago, it was 2 years ago. So for 2015, I bought one of those big desk calendars, and each page is a month, and so the boxes are pretty big, so you can write lots in them. And I bought myself a pack of gold stars. I mean, this was a special trip to Office Depot. I was getting ready, and I did my planning, and I did my quarterly goals, and I got my calendar, and I think by February that calendar was collecting dust in a corner.
Yeah. And my problem is I love office supplies so much. I will make myself all sorts of fun stuff that I don't follow at all.
Right.
And I use that to procrastinate from being accountable to my actual goals.
Right.
So,
yeah. So I do have a new accountability buddy, Nico. We were in the MFA program together and have been writing buddies for years. So he's the one I went on the retreat with. So if you watch that week's 60-second writing trip, you saw photos of Nico. So we have a weekly Skype meeting where we just touch base for like 20 minutes and say, what are your goals? What did you accomplish? And then we do sounding board for each other. Like, is that realistic? Do you feel like you're on track? What's happening? It's Thanksgiving next week. Can you hack this much work? And once a month we meet face to face so we can do a more in-depth planning. And then daily we just send each other quick emails, which is nice. And I use Trello. I wasn't sure I wanted to do daily emails because I thought it might be a nuisance, but I've incorporated Trello into my daily planning. So so if you don't know Trello, just go to Trello and check it out. It's project management. And Matt, you actually turned me on to Trello. So I just
project management software.
Yeah, I just make a card that's a daily template, and I copy that card over and I make to-do lists. I've got categories for my fiction, for my business, for like errands and appointments outside of work that can't be avoided, walking the dog, exercise. And then each day I fill in the tasks under those cards. And it really helps me see where my tipping point is between this is a productive day, this is too much, this, squeezed out exercise or anything I would want to do for myself, and then see that to make adjustments. And I think just having a visible record of what I was actually able to tick off has been really helpful for kind of getting real. And that you can do without a partner. You don't need to have a partner. But with Nico, I just like ping him on the card, so then I don't have to do a separate email. It's one step instead of two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would also suggest that sometimes, if you find yourself not hitting deadlines, maybe what you need is not more willpower or more deadlines or more accountability, but what you actually need is to cut things out.
Right. And Trello really helps me to see that. When I'm doing my list, I know like this call is going to take 2 hours, but that, task is going to take 15 minutes. So the list might be shorter or longer on any given day, but it is really nice to, visualize what I'm doing when I plan my day. So do you guys have any other tools that you could recommend or say people might avoid?
I just use iOS reminders, or Apple's reminders. It's on my phone, it's on my desktop because I have a Mac, and it syncs across the devices. So I have writing, freelance for my day job, personal. I even have like a grocery list on there, and then I have a to-day list. Okay. So what I do is I'll keep like the backlog in there, and then when I start the day, like you do with Trello, Alida, I'll just drag things that I want to do that day over to today. And what I've learned over time is that I can only get, 3 or 4 big things done in a day, right? And if it's a writing day, it's like there's one thing on the list and maybe a couple small things. It's write this scene, and that's going to take me a few hours, and then a couple small things, so just knowing like what your capacity is. But that daily planning is really useful. And iOS reminders, if you have an iPhone and a Mac, it's just really easy to have that built in. You don't need anything extra. It's always with you. You can set deadlines and due dates if you want to, but that's what I use on a daily basis.
Right. Cool. Do you have any tools you use, Kathryn?
I'm just much more hard copy than electronic, so I have to physically handwrite it, and that also slows me down enough to say, oh, you have now written 7 lines of to-do list things. That is too many.
Right.
And keeping track of like what days I know I have the energy and the capacity to actually do writing work, because I'm pretty booked out with a lot of my music stuff plus my job. So knowing Monday, yes, I can spend an hour and a half to 2 hours. Thursday, maybe, depending on the week. But, like being able to write it out. And this is why I keep my journal everywhere with me. Just being able to write it out and say, okay, tonight, I know I have an hour and a half. Here's the 3 things I'm going to get done at the end.
Right. Yeah. And I still use a paper calendar because I like to do that level of planning too. But, with like the Nico thing, I didn't want the added step of going from paper to digital to... And, when I was before graduate school, I wrote all my books longhand first, and then the first revision occurred while I typed. And I got going with term papers and was like, that is way too slow.
Right.
So I had to learn to compose on the keyboard. So, yeah, I love my paper, but...
my problem with doing it on a keyboard is I type too fast. And so I will literally like type way more than I can do and just be like, that didn't take me hardly any time at all. So it's fine. So, but like handwriting it out makes me slow down and think about it. So that's why I have to do it tactily rather than on the keyboard.
Cool. Well, we have hit 20 minutes, believe it or not. So yay.
Goes fast.
It does. It does go fast. So accountability for writers. We talked about some tools you can use: Trello, iOS, paper calendars, journals, gold stars, whatever floats your organizational boat. And carrots and sticks. You can go as extreme as pre-order deadlines, or just get an accountability buddy, but set up a system of communication that works, because once you guys slack off, then you're just back where you started. So find someone who wants to be locked in with you, and then figure out your capacity for the accountability piece. Is there anything you two would add to that?
It's good. Do it.
Right to the point.
That's right. Yeah. I would just say know yourself, know your own limits. That's the most important thing. If you can learn what your own limits are, then everything else is easy. Right.
And for me, seeing it really has helped me to learn those limits, because it used to be without the list making, I'd go to bed thinking, why didn't I get this and that done? And now I'm like, oh, I can actually see the shape of my day.
Yeah, and let yourself learn from it, right? Like if you write 10 things down and you only do 2, at the end of the day, look at it and go, maybe I should start with 2 tomorrow.
Right. Good advice. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. This is another episode of the StoryWorks Roundtable, and you can join the conversation at the StoryWorks Writers Facebook group. We hope to see you there.